Hello guys and welcome back to another video. I'm a PC gamer. I do own a PS4 but I don't really buy games for it anymore because every time I did I felt limited. I couldn't change the graphical settings, the FPS was almost always 30 and I had to pay for playing online, which was nothing but corporate greed from Sony. Since then, I have taken a more serious stance against the console industry because these business practices like charging money for absolutely no reason whatsoever are scummy. Before I take on the topic at hand, let me give you a small disclaimer about the whole platform war. Do you know what is hands down the worst aspect of this whole PC vs console debate? The personal attacks, the slander, the bigotry. See, I'm a very straightforward and logical person. If I decide to criticize something, I do it well. I take the argument, strip it apart, and then counter the points made in it. What I find interesting is that the discourse between PC and console gamers almost always devolves into, well, your platform sucks and you're gay, or something along those lines. I hate to break it to you, console and PC gamers alike, that is not an argument. You did not prove any point, but rather made you, your platform, and the whole community surrounding it look stupid. Not only that, but this kind of behavior only makes sure that we keep having bad relations in the future. Okay, so the topic at hand. How can consoles be improved? As I mentioned earlier, I prefer the PC simply because it doesn't limit me in any way. I can plop in any hardware, any software, and change the case to make my build look just like I want it to. Even if this seems like I'm reaching, something similar could be implemented to consoles. See, there was this concept video going around some years ago called phone blocks. This concept never became anything, for the reason that changing components that quickly and all of them working on the same set of pins is impossible. But it could work if you made it a bit less ambitious. Let me show you a small clip.
So this is a new kind of phone. It's made of blocks. Detachable blocks. They are all connected to the base, and the base connects everything together. Electrical signals are transferred through the pins, and two small screws lock everything in place. So if, for instance, your phone is getting a little slow, you can just upgrade the block that affects the speed. Or if something breaks, you can easily replace it with a new one, or update it with the latest version. Another great thing about this is, you can customize your phone. So let's say this is your phone and you do everything in the cloud. Why not replace your storage block for a bigger battery block? If you're like this guy and love to take pictures, why not upgrade your camera? Or if you don't care about any of this stuff, you can keep it simple and get a bigger speaker. You can choose the blocks you want, support the brands you like, or even develop your own blocks.
By now, you're probably getting the idea. What Sony and Microsoft could do is to sell a quote-unquote base console with only the bare minimum in it, and then the consumer could buy such things like the hard drive, processor, and so on. How this would play out in practice is that the base console would have designated slots for different components, which unlike phone blocks, would actually work. Sony and Microsoft, being greedy control freaks, would probably get shivers from the thought of turning this idea to reality, so let me give them some leniency too. How about this? They get to choose the component brands and 3 to 5 tiers of them, like for instance RAM modules of 2, 4, and 8 GB of memory. This way, Sony and Microsoft could hit many target audiences. If you like casual arcade games and watching Netflix, then you could buy 2 gigs of RAM and a low performance graphics chip. If you're a hardcore gamer, then you could buy 8 gigs of RAM and a quad-core processor. The best part about this would be that you could update whenever you want and the base console itself would last for years. This would turn consoles into semi-PCs with dozens of uses, not just gaming. It would expand the customer base by a lot, so I don't really see why this hasn't already been done. Well, other than for the fact that Sony and Microsoft don't want you to have any personal freedom whatsoever. Now granted, there are some issues here. Console gamers are used to buying games and being sure that their machine can run it, and that convenience would be lost in this process. But then again, it's not hard to simply check. Considering that the components making up the console would be simplified, no one would have a problem resolving if their unit can run something. Furthermore, Sony and Microsoft could sell pre-built console bundles that could serve as kind of a gold standard of performance. Okay, enough playing around, let's move on. Then I would like to mention the graphical settings. Right now on consoles, they don't exist. You either play with what the manufacturer gave you or you don't play at all. Why can't consumers decide if they want lower graphical settings in exchange for higher FPS or vice versa? It baffles me that this hasn't been a feature since the beginning, and it truly displays just how scummy these corporations are. Another thing is the controller. Right now you're limited to using them. I know that you can get a mouse and keyboard setup, but it's not that great. The console still thinks of the mouse as an analog stick, so the accuracy is hindered. Sony and Microsoft could make their own mouse and keyboard setups that will work like they do on the PC. However, they'd probably have to separate online games between the two control schemes simply due to the fact that the mouse is such an accurate pointing device. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the online subscriptions. The money you pay monthly goes to nothing. The online servers you play on aren't hosted by Sony or Microsoft, but the developer. That money you give them is nothing but a middleman scam, and it's the scummiest thing about consoles. Please, Sony and Microsoft, stop doing this. It will make the community much happier. On that note, I think it's time to end the video. If you enjoyed watching this, consider liking or subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.